big grin on my face.
Let me post this. Post this in IRC and we can go and get started. Let's see.
Oh, damn it. Get. My cat's screwing up my audio.
All right. Now we can get started.
Hold on. There we go. Nope. No.
What's wrong? I mean, I hear you fine. Can you not hear me?
No, I only get... My speakers are ancient, and the cables need to be jiggled in order to get stereo. So when my cat sits down on my router, one of my headphone sides goes out.
Okay. I believe you. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm good.
Okay.
Hopefully my cat doesn't sit down.
Anytime. You want to start it?
Happy Thanksgiving, Eric.
Happy Thanksgiving, Thomas. You big turkey.
Are you full?
We didn't have turkey today. We didn't celebrate. It was actually a very hard Thanksgiving for me today.
Thanks, Trump.
My daughters who are 18 now, originally both decided to spend Thanksgiving with their significants. One of them changed her plan last second, but we had already decided to hold off our actual family Thanksgiving dinner until tomorrow. So I had mini wiener dogs and watched football all day. And I gotta admit, I was a little like, it was weird. Like, my kids had decided to spend Thanksgiving with another family and not us.
It sounds rough.
It was a first for me. And yeah, it hit me a little harder than I expected, but I guess that's what happens when they grow up.
Yeah, I'm anxiously awaiting that to happen to me.
What about you? Did you get your fill?
Yeah, got some ham with the in-laws, and got to break up fights between the children and the usual
Typical family gathering.
Yeah, we did leave Grandma and Grandpa's house minus one child, so that was a pleasant surprise.
I assume the child stayed behind. You didn't just lose it.
Yeah, we almost lost one, but then one of them chose to stay behind, so we didn't put up a big fight.
So we should clarify for our non-American listeners, today is Thanksgiving, which is, as we all know, the day that God came to America and told us to fight the Canadians with turkeys.
Yep.
I think.
And corn.
And corn.
Or maize, as they called it.
And watch football.
So you were watching football today then. So you saw the just plethora of ads that are out there for Black Friday sales.
Yeah. There's a few. So that's the other big thing that follows Thanksgiving here in the U.S. A week of heavily discounted merchandise.
Yes, binge consumerism. And the usual thing is Black Friday, of course, happens on Friday. but oddly enough, this year it happened on Thursday.
What
Did
do
you
you mean?
notice that at all?
No.
All of these
I
Black
mean,
Friday ads that I
no,
saw.
no different than any other year.
No, this is totally a new thing. That the all the ads I saw were saying, "Hey, Black Friday starts today instead of Friday, so line up and grab your stuff now." Target and all these stores mad dash to the stores today instead of Friday.
Well, they usually start at midnight tonight is the traditional thing. I know a lot of stores have kind of started to veer away from that a little bit because of the bad reputation that has and rightfully so the bad reputation it has.
Yeah, the
Um,
several deaths that have occurred.
but I went to Walmart this morning for groceries, and they were putting up the little the little gates to corral people, and they had everything out, but it was wrapped up saying, sale doesn't start until whenever it starts. I think it actually started at 6 p.m. tonight, not midnight. So, yeah. Uh, now, have you been following the stuff? We've partnered up with the guys over at LaraChat.
I saw this.
Did you?
We have the Black Friday GitHub.
Yeah, the awesome Black Friday sale stuff. Sean pinged me on Sean pinged me on Slack, and he said, "Hey, and I saw this tweet go out. What do you think we it'd be nice if we could do something." And somebody had mentioned uh, one of these awesome GitHub repos where it's just a list of things. Vue has one, Vue awesomeness. So he was Sean Mays was like, "What do you think? Should we do something?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's throw something up on GitHub." And I think we've gotten like 20 or something pull requests, and it's only been like 24 hours since we started it.
Hmm.
Um, so it's been fun. I mean, kudos to Sean for taking the initiative of doing it. But yeah, it's cool stuff, and I mean, it's geared for us geeks. It's not just like, hey, Walmart has peanut butter on sale or anything like that. It's really geared for the things like Laracast. I mean, Laracast has their once a year heavily discounted membership, which if you're listening to this show, it's too late. I think he ends the sale Friday at midnight Eastern Standard Time or something like that. So yeah, by the time this show goes out, a lot of these deals would have passed already. But yeah, fun stuff.
I'll bet you we can work out an extension deal or something with them. Him.
With who? Laracast?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see if we can give an extra discount for our avid listeners.
Yeah. What have you been up to this week? Is it a short week for you? Are you done working for the week, or do you work tomorrow?
Yeah, short week for me. It actually ended as a half day yesterday. Just got
Mm-hmm.
got the text message that said, "Hey, everyone else is leaving the office. You might as well take the day off too."
Nice, very
Which
nice.
it left me sort of twiddling my thumbs because I had I had allocated very little time to my family for the purpose of my sanity, and then was told to go spend time with my family. So I had to quickly come up with things that needed emergency work done on them. It's been good. It's been nice and relaxing. Been catching some videos. I found a great resource that I actually found this a long time ago and saw it pop back up on Reddit again. But it's another GitHub project, which is a list of online computer science lectures and courses. Stuff that's just hosted through YouTube, and it covers a lot of the comp sci curriculum. Um, even as far as into theoretical languages and theoretical programming. So it,
Uh,
it gets pretty deep.
Didn't MIT or somebody do something similar where they released all their computer science classes as open source to the public?
Yeah, with MIT's thing, you can sign up and actually get a grade from a teacher. You can actually virtually attend their comp sci courses to an extent,
Mm-hmm.
which I had signed up to do once, but the pace of it is a scholastic pace. I just couldn't keep up with it. I got a job, man.
Yeah. I see they got some talks here from the University of Washington, Brown University,
Oh yeah.
Caltech, University of Utah, Purdue. Very lots of good lectures here.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information here, and it's mostly into pretty manageable chunks.
Manageable chunks.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, something I still spend way too much time on Laracast, to be honest with you, to look at any other videos. Oh, did I tell you? I think I did share with you. We'll share with our audience as well, I guess. So you and I mentioned last week I was working on getting the Larachat live converted over to audio only and up on iTunes.
Right.
Yeah, I got that done. So that's out there. In the process of doing so, I came across another website that I think I might move PHP Ugly to when our year runs out on SoundCloud, just because it's kind of an all-in-one site where it's what I did for Larachat. If you go to podcast.larachat.io, I think is what it is. You can see it's a Simplecast service, and they host your podcast for you. They let you do a pseudo web page and give all the information on your podcast. It's very nice. I saw it because there's guys from North Meets South use it, and I was like, hey, this looks pretty cool. I should look at this for PHP Ugly. But we had already started using SoundCloud, and I'd paid for it for like a year, so I wasn't worried about switching anytime soon. But when Sean reached out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this other service. Let me check it out. And so that's where I hosted them at.
Yeah, and it's podcast.larachat.co, not io.
CO. Okay, good call. Yeah, we'll get that posted in the show notes as well. So all the past shows are up there, and then any future shows will get up there as well. We haven't actually done the show in a couple weeks, but I think they're talking about doing another one.
I have a good question for you, Eric.
Sure, go ahead, Thomas.
Would you consider yourself, I don't know, 60% traditional, 80-ish% achievement oriented, 15% stimulation oriented?
Oh, baby, where are you going with this? I'm not sure how to make that assessment, to be quite honest with you.
It's actually quite simple. There's an API for it.
There's an API to show how stimulated I am?
Yeah, so I stumbled across this, and in my industry, knowing people's interests is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that IBM has created a ton of API interfaces for its Watson system.
Yeah, I saw you post this. Now, I saw this come through my feed on Laravel News, and I didn't really read it a whole lot. Is this tied directly into PHP? I knew Watson was a thing. I knew they were creating a bunch of APIs for it. But does this all tie together with PHP, or what's up with that?
Well, they've released a Laravel-specific API package. So
For Watson?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Absolutely not. Laravel specific.
You stop it.
They've got demo apps and everything. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if this was released by IBM, but it didn't take long if it wasn't.
Does it cost you anything to use Watson?
You can send a large number of queries to it before you start hitting their paywall. Something in the range of 100,000 queries.
Well, that is interesting.
So the implication here is, if you have information on all your customers, you feed it into this Watson system, and it tells you what sales approach would probably be most effective with this person. So is this person trying to help others, or is this person trying to achieve something for themselves?
That is cool.
It's cool, but I could easily see myself tying this to my Facebook account and then getting analytical breakdowns of everyone I'm friends with, because that's the kind of information you need. Is you need documents produced by this person.
Yeah.
So their
Well,
example documents would be speeches given by the president, or thoughts on meditation by the Dalai Lama, that kind of thing. And it breaks down those examples into what the example is about on a fundamental scale. Is it about tradition or values or whatever you have? So
I wonder if this ties into a site. Again, my buddy over at LaraChat Live, Matt Lance, he turned me onto a site called trying to remember what it's called, receptivity or something like that. Where you put in a chunk of correspondence you have with somebody, either an email correspondence or even instant messaging, and it tells you like about that person and their intent and like the underlying message uh, of that piece. And I mean, it's pretty detailed. You know, when you put the chunk in there, it asks you, is this a formal email? Is this casual conversation? You know, it asks for some context around what the scope is of the conversation, and then it tells you. It says, yeah, this person is aggressive. They need to be in charge. They're looking for validation on what they're saying. I'm like, oh, this is weird.
yeah, and this is just one of the APIs that is provided for Watson. And for those that don't know what Watson is an AI system developed by IBM, which actually won
Jeopardy,
Jeopardy
didn't it?
several
Yeah.
times.
And they also beat like the world chess master who said
Yeah,
that he would never lose to a computer.
yeah. So there's this service. There's other services such as Tone Analyzer, um, which lets you figure out, is a person being sarcastic over text or are they being genuine,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And it's pretty fascinating, but it's also somewhat scary in the sense that now, people who don't have the best intentions can call an API to tailor things specifically to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the people who are trying to make spam more effective by customizing every spam email to the client that they're trying to reel in some way, we already have issues with with things like phishing attacks. You know what a phishing attack is, of course.
So yep.
You know what a spear phishing attack is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's when
now
you're targeting somebody.
right. So now you can basically have an API to call to create a spear phishing attack out of a regular phishing attack.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, this person, I know about them from something they posted on Facebook. I'm going to take that data and target them automatically.
Why are you trying to twist this into doom and gloom? You have doom and gloom on here. Don't try to twist every conversation into doom and gloom.
It's all I have.
It's Turkey Day, man.
It's turkey.
Be a happy turkey. Don't be a sad turkey.
Think of all those dead turkeys.
Asshole.
Yeah, so it's for me, it's interesting to have API calls available to supercomputers at this level, to basically anyone with an email address. I'm really fascinated to see what comes of this kind of availability of supercomputer software.
Mm.
You shared some interesting communique stuff recently.
Did I? What did I
Yeah,
share?
with the user CHX on the Drupal group.
Oh yeah. Was that me?
Yeah, you pointed this out to me. We were talking about how Microsoft is now trying to get Linus Torvalds removed from the Linux project.
Yeah, you put this card up here though, right? The
I
Drupal,
did.
yeah,
I,
and
I
it was
find
good.
I found it interesting because it's the story of a very involved community member of Drupal, uh, basically catching catching the hook from everyone else, or at least the other admins in the community. Um, and I can't tell how serious his offenses are, but I know that his punishment is pretty severe. I mean, banned from a conference, which is that's got to be a small elite group of people who've been banned from programming conferences.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the ban is more of a, hey, any official Drupal conference, we're going to recommend that you're not allowed to be a speaker there. I mean, I don't think he's like banned, like don't show up, don't show your face. This harped back a lot to the all the craziness that went on with the PHP. Oh, help me out here. Not the
I'll
league,
give you a hint. He's our guest in
Fig
January.
Fig group. He's our guest in January. He's not our guest in January. It was around Paul Jones,
I thought it was
the
around.
Adam Wathan.
Yeah.
No, no. The thing that happened in Fig was around Paul
Oh, right.
Jones.
No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
wonderful Adam Wathan is. It's easy to get
yeah.
those things confused.
So this sounded, but the thing that was weird about this article, and it actually spurred a little back and forth with Cal Evans on Twitter, um, was the way that he at the end of the article, the guy kind of randomly calls out, "I can't wait for Linus to get kicked out of the kernel group."
Right.
It's like, where is that coming? I actually reread the article. I'm like, is he involved in this somehow? Where did that statement come from? And and Cal Evans had mentioned something about it on Twitter as well. And then I guess Drupal responded with, "Hey, that's not an official Drupal blog. That's a personal blog. That's not a statement or a comment from us." So they were very quick to kind of swoop in. I mean, everything that happened was this person capturing what happened in the Drupal community. But that one statement about Linus Torvalds and the Linux Foundation was not associated to it. And
Yeah.
it just wasn't, even in this article, wasn't. So it was kind of a bizarre statement, but it's like, yeah, the vultures are kind of circling Linus, and he is one of the more abrasive people in open source. And he's pretty upfront about it. I
Yeah, but
think
I like I said when we were talking about it earlier, I think it's mandatory for his position. I mean,
no,
if you were
it's to be hard nosed for a person in his position. To be hard nosed and focused is one thing, but he's cruel. I mean, he gets very cruel on his mailing list, and he's
yeah,
abrasive.
oh yeah, absolutely. But imagine if you had gone up to Bill Gates and you were the 100th person to say, "Hey, I wrote a patch to fix your stupid program," and
Mm-hmm.
your patch completely broke everything and was total garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the thing that Linus Torvalds, he is the Bill Gates of the open source Linux community. He is the big head that everyone comes crying to, uh, and I've seen the crap he has to deal with. There's a lot of times where the end of the email chain is what gets quoted and posted on Slashdot if that still exists, and the whole rest of the email chain is him trying very hard to explain, listen, I understand you just graduated college, but you do not understand the Linux kernel well enough to be doing this. Please stop
Yeah.
pushing pull requests to me. I don't want them.
Yeah, the only thing that gets posted is the 110th email of him saying, "Listen, fuck off, you're an idiot."
Right.
It's like, yeah, that's the one that gets posted.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me about this issue with Karoly Négyesi, who's who's been outed from the Drupal community, is that there's a lot of evidence being posted as to why he was kicked out, but it seems like he's just a tired person at the end of the day dealing with this thing for the last time. He's not going Linus Torvald on people. He's not being brutal or cruel, And one of the accusations here is comments leveled against Mark Sonnebaum with unfounded accusation or assertions of special treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think this is fuel to the fire for a lot of the community that is afraid of these terms of behavior for open source
Mm-hmm.
projects. When you look at something that seems innocuous and it got a person banned from attending events, that seems like it could affect you. I think inherently in any developer who has sort of overcome the imposter syndrome, you worry that now you're an asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah. I get that. Well, and again, you hit on it as well. It's with so many of these open source projects, these aren't full-time jobs for people. These are people who work all day long, and they're trying to get these little projects moving. Not little projects. Drupal's by no means a little project. It's a mammoth, and I don't know if this guy was getting paid to do the work he did for Drupal. I don't think he was.
No, he's just
Uh,
a consultant that he primarily works in Drupal, but he's a community member at large. He's not taking cash.
right. So it's funny because this ties into another really good blog post I read. Already mentioned the guy's name here once. Cal Evans wrote a blog post for SitePoint, which I think that's the first time I've noticed Cal Evans writing for SitePoint. He may have done it in the past, but he wrote an article for SitePoint, and he's talking about the title of the article is "Pay the Price for Open Source," and we've talked about it in the past. I'm a big open source guy. I know you're an open source person. Talked about
Absolutely.
how free is never really free. There's always a cost associated, and a lot. We can do a whole show on that. But the cool thing about Cal's article is he really focuses a lot about contributing back to projects and how important it is. If all you're doing is basically consuming open source projects and not contributing back, it's that project's going to die. So it's I don't know. I thought it was a good read. It's a pretty short read. We'll have the link posted in the show notes as well. But we've talked about the financial cost of open source, but he really kind of focuses on there's a duty to contribute back. I mean, you really should think of that as a cost when using an open source project. So I thought it was a good read.
Yeah, and Cal Evans is not somebody to take lightly either. He is one of the top names in the PHP community. Very involved with Nomad PHP, and has brought a lot to open source as an author, not just as a lurker, like
Yeah.
little old me.
Yeah.
My greatest open source contribution is using a pirated version of Windows.
That's your greatest open source contribution. I'm sure
I'm
your
afraid
buddy Bill
so.
happy to hear that.
We're not buddy buddy, just buddy.
Remember Snipey Head?
I do remember Snipey Head. I love Snipey Head.
You still a fan?
I am.
After because sometimes people meet their idols in real life and it loses its shine. So I wasn't sure if that had happened to you.
I'm afraid I put my foot in my mouth once, but that was all. And she never came back. But that's
Haven't heard from her. She hasn't
yeah.
tweeted to us. She stopped listening to the show. You
She
know,
never listened to the show.
no, this is true. She has a good article out there. Uh, Demystifying custom auth in Laravel. Um, I don't know if you've ever. I mean, you probably have. Have you ever really dove into the Laravel core for auth?
I have on occasion. I do
Yeah.
use a pretty obscure roundabout system of auth in my current software.
Oh yeah.
That's all I'll say about that, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay. Well, she wrote a pretty good article that takes a pretty deep dive into Laravel auth and how to customize it and things like that. It's a great read. Again, we'll put the link in the show notes. But if you're a Laravel developer and you're working with authentication, take 10 minutes to read this article from her.
Yeah, and I love these kinds of articles that take the deep dive because you start getting into core components and it can really turn into a foreign language fast. Some of the stuff, it's making the shortest calls possible as fast as possible, and it's not given a lot of explanation. And when you break down methods that don't have a great documentation behind them, it's really helpful for users like me,
Mm-hmm.
people who can barely read.
Now you're solely a developer, right? You don't do any administrative stuff, do you?
No, I like to consider myself a developer and thought leader in the sense that I've had on many occasions a person come to me and say we want this feature, and me spend an hour saying okay, you don't though, and I'll walk you through every step of why you don't, because I've I have done this a lot. I've done the same CRM hundreds of times at this point, and I get some of the same questions where someone says, "Oh, I want the CRM to be able to do this," and I have to say, "Listen, I've done it. First off, and you don't. You really don't. It's terrible." But yes, I am purely a developer. So, for the sake of not stepping on your story,
I was just saying, I'm sitting here trying to
why?
think how I'm going to get back to my topic here.
Why?
You like,
Yes, I don't deal with the server side or deployment side at all. Why do you ask?
I mean, I think you might have a little built-up hostility there.
It's
You might want to
Thanksgiving,
talk
man.
to somebody.
I got hostility everywhere right now.
That was a landmine I stepped on there. Holy crap, man! I don't know what to say now. Hey, Thomas, you just strictly do development, right? You don't do any administrative stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I just do development. I barely even that.
Do you even know how your sites are deployed?
I do.
Yeah.
Pure
How you
magic.
guys? Oh, okay.
I
we
know who, I don't know how.
you know, so we obviously do both with our company, and most of our developers have a lot of exposure to it. And getting a good workflow down to have deployments be consistent is such an important factor. Um, Now we've had some pretty good luck with Ansible, and as kind of the what we use now is Ansible, really, because we've kind of got our recipes dialed in. It just works really well. But this article came across my feeds this week about this new deployment system for Laravel applications, and it's kind of like it's a standalone install like Composer. It's called Deployer. It's really pretty nice. I mean, just reading through it, it does a lot of things we do where it creates multiple releases, um, so that you can roll back, and things like your storage directory and your .env file, it abstracts out of your deployment and puts it into a shared location. It does some really nifty things. If you're getting started with a Laravel project and you're looking for a good deployment system and you don't have something really fancy like Jenkins or any of these continuous integration systems set up, take a look at Deployer for Laravel. Pretty nifty looking little script here. I think I might try this in our next project before we set up Ansible, just to see if it has any additional benefits to it that we're not taking advantage of with Ansible.
Yeah, I like it. I like the way it looks. Nice slick interface. Pretty great.
You're never going to deploy an app, so you don't care.
No, not anymore. Not since I got into a big environment where someone does it for me. I used to do Chef and Puppet stuff, and I used to have all that deployment stuff as part of my job. But man, I'll tell you what, it's pretty nice to have somebody go, "Oh, my problem, my fault again."
Yeah.
Having somebody else say "my fault," man, it's like a vacation every time I hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about Paul Jones earlier.
Oh, we did. I'm sorry.
We did. We did talk about Paul Jones earlier. He has a pretty good article out there. Something in PHP 7, there's a new request extension you can enable. And when I read this, from being a Laravel developer, I realized how heavily I rely on Laravel now to manage things like that for me.
Mm-hmm.
This request extension that Paul talks about in his article essentially does a lot of things that the request functions do in a Laravel framework. And I guess a lot of frameworks have similar functionality, but this is for if you're writing core PHP stuff, you still have you can have that same functionality available to you. Good article, good read. Again, we'll add it to the show notes. One thing that stood out to me, I hadn't realized this, and again, we're talking a lot about Paul Jones here. He's not on Twitter anymore.
Really?
He posted his last tweet on sometime back in October. I mean, it was like early October, like October 1st or 2nd. And he even said, "Hey, I'm taking a hiatus from Twitter." He linked to a couple other social networks that he's on if you wanted to continue to follow him. Fortunately, I had come across this article because somehow it ended up in one of my PHP streams, and that was good. But yeah, he's not on Twitter anymore.
And it's interesting because I'm looking through the comment section here, and someone said, "Well, how about adding these different file types? Did you think about implementing the OO way and then passing everything in as methods?" And he says, "Good question. I'll write a follow-up post about that," which is just what a jerk.
That's a jerk? Why is that a jerk?
No. I love this guy. I love Paul M. Jones. I know he's controversial in the community, but
I think he's extremely arrogant, but man, is that guy smart as hell. I tell you what, he is really one of the more brilliant people in our community.
Yeah, no, I've met plenty of people in my life who I meet him and I think, God, that guy's just an arrogant genius. Damn him for totally being right. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be casually intelligent. I'll be reading over this. This is good stuff. It's dense.
It's a good read. Yeah, I should have. I wish I'd stumbled across it sooner in the week. I would have kicked it your way. I know you kind of really absorbed this stuff, so I think you'll like that read.
Well, I can't help it. I'm just smart.
You're a smart guy.
Yeah. What some would even say the smartest. I have the best ideas.
What is with you today?
I don't know. I'll tell you what. Laravel 5.4 has been driving me a little nuts.
Why is this?
Because there are new blade features in Laravel 4 that I get upset that someone worked on. I sort of see it. I see it and I go, why are you spending time on this? You already have the same functionality in a different way. Why are you just it seems like fluffing rather than developing. But then something like this comes along and it's the exact opposite. I just say, "Oh wow, that's that's perfect. This has been bugging me and now it's being done the right way." It's a mixed bag for me, but I do love this new system that's been put in place. I'm sorry, is it yours?
No, it's yours. I'm just sitting here thinking the people listening to the show are like, what the hell is he talking about?
JSON based language files.
Right. So a new feature coming out in Laravel 5.4 will be JSON based language files. And Laravel's always had multilingual support, right?
Yeah. It's just it hasn't been great. It hasn't been fun to work with. And sort of interestingly enough, this is a major change in 5.4. So if you did use Laravel to do your language-based stuff in the past, this is a whole new thing.
Have you ever had to do that? Have a site multilingual?
No.
No?
Long time ago, I had to have a Chinese site multilingual because there's multiple Chinese alphabets. But fortunately, I didn't work on any of the coding behind that. I did see it. I saw the pain in all the other developers' eyes, but I didn't have to deal with it myself.
Yeah, I mean that's always my question with even with this new JSON file is, do you have to go through and translate the entire page? Is that what happens?
There's a lot of automated tools. Would you like to hear one of my best stories ever?
Yes. Something to save the show.
Because I'll tell you, this is one of my best stories ever. Probably my best story ever. We had a multilingual website developed by a Russian team that I was brought in to, let's say, fix, because it was bad.
Okay.
And after a few months, things got worked out. All the back doors were closed up, of which there were more than one. And things were running relatively cleanly, so I started going through the multilingual section to make sure nothing was wrong. And it had a list of all of the languages that supported, that the system supported. It was basic CMS. So you could choose English, Spanish, Russian, German. But the one that stuck out was the language Jew.
Jew? Jew's a language?
Apparently the Russians are not big fans of Hebrew, and they just call it Jew.
Jew?
So, it makes an interesting trouble ticket to write when you have to tell your boss that you're renaming the hard-coded language Jew to Hebrew. Yeah. And you could sort of sense in the code the hard J. It wasn't a soft, oh yeah, Jews, No, it was
the Jewish language.
Yeah, clearly someone with animosity was writing the language file. And I went, yeah, English, Spanish, Jew. It's what it is. Send it out. So to answer your question, yes, I've dealt with language files before. And Laravel's implementation wasn't the best, but boy did it get an overhaul. Basically, the big thing here is you name your variables what they would be in the default language.
Right.
Have you seen? So if the default text is please enter your information in here, then you have an array whose key is please enter your information in here, and the values of that are all of the other language options.
Right. Yeah, I did see that in the article. Yeah, and then that's what got me asking the question. It's like, do you have to do that through the entire page? And I mean, that just seems like a lot of work.
I'll tell you what, Watson has a service for it.
I bet Watson. I think Google does too. It's called Google Translate.
Yeah, and in my experience doing this in the past, that's really what you do, is you just take your text strings, feed them into a processor, and dump the output into multiple languages. And then you hire someone to just proofread it.
Proofread it? Interesting. All right, you got a doom and gloom ticket on here. I'm going to give it to you.
What?
Lay it on us. Lay it on us.
Doom and gloom time.
Did you listen to the last show?
There's a security group.
Did you listen to the last show?
I loved it. It was great. I was the best part of it.
You're so full of shit. You didn't listen to the last show.
No, I started it. I didn't get all the way through it.
I put special doom and gloom music on it. I'm not doing it this week.
I asked you if you did. You just started yelling at me.
What? When? Of course I'm going to yell at you.
I know.
Yes, stupid questions.
It's one of your hobbies.
Listen to the damn show. I put a lot of work into this damn thing.
All right, I'll pause the podcast right now. I'll listen to my other podcast.
No, listen to your do your doom and gloom. You don't need to listen to the show though, because I'm not going to do anything special for it this time.
So there is a group called WordFence, which is a new thing to me. But this is a WordPress specific security group.
I can see a need for that.
The need for that is that upwards of 20% of the internet is running on WordPress.
Do you really buy that? Do you really think it's that high?
I do.
Wow.
There was an article on NPR yesterday about fake news.
27% is what the article says. It's almost 30%.
I'm being soft on it. I would easily say 27% of websites. Now, let's say websites, not content or visits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got 2 WordPress blogs of my own that have 1 visitor.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. But I totally believe this. Now, the issue is with one service running that much of the internet, if you can compromise their auto-update system, then you could compromise 27% of servers on the internet all at once.
That is absolutely terrifying. We had this conversation last podcast, actually, where a developer does something because they think it's in the best interest. Like they think they're being helpful. And the example I gave was when Facebook did this thing where they stored multiple versions of your password, depending on if you had your cap locks on or off, right? And you look back and you say, hey, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. When WordPress Auto Update came out, that was a direct response to all these old WordPress sites that were getting compromised because the administrators weren't going in there to update them. So WordPress said, hey, let's create an auto update feature so that they don't have to worry about it anymore. The site will just stay up to date all by itself, all magic like. Now you're going to tell me that was actually a bad idea.
It might have been.
I hate you. When are you moving?
I've already moved. You just haven't noticed.
Thank God.
Just like the meetup in January that you're going to be at, that you forgot that you're going to be out of the country.
You know, I think I want to make that meetup, by the way.
Oh, nice. I won't be there. I'm in Colorado.
I was talking to the wife about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm really disappointed because we're interviewing this guy, and I really would love to have a conversation with him. He's one of the smart guys in the community and this and that. And she's like, well, we should be back in San Diego by like 10 o'clock in the morning, so we should be able to make it. I'm like, hey, that's cool. So I think I might be able to make it. We're getting off topic. Talk about your exploit here, because I think this is very serious.
Put a pause break in here. I've got to use the restroom and grab another beverage.
All right, you got it.
All right. Ready to go?
Yep.
So I can tell you from some inside information, the auto update team at Microsoft, we're talking private networks with retina scanners and fingerprint scanners, and I mean just the top end of security.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the auto update feature of WordPress, but every OS out there has auto update. There's a lot of the applications out there that give you the option to auto update them now. So this,
well, one of the most important things is to audit these kinds of things, and so an audit by this group, WordFence, basically came up and said, well, hey, if you're a member of the GitHub core team with WordPress, then you can push a pull request into production and it gets picked up by webhooks that check Git regularly for new versions. This webhook is secure. It uses 120 or 160-bit encryption. It uses private keys that are not publicly disclosed. But the webhook, like anything else, WordPress is open source. And so having dug through this webhook, the WordFence team found that it's actually capable of accepting multiple different encryption protocols. So if you want to get the private key that's being used by WordPress on the GitHub side, then all you have to do is dump the encryption level down to a really stupid bad encryption level and then break the encryption. So this is a sort of a handshake hack. And what they did is they convinced GitHub to send an Adler 32 encryption key, which is actually a known vulnerable encryption methodology. And once they had the encrypted data, they sat on it for a couple days, decrypted it, and got the private key for the WordPress Git repo.
man,
Once they had that, then they had everything they needed to do to spoof updates to WordPress, which one of the first things WordPress does when it gets an update is run a sysexec on the data that it gets. So it isn't even a matter of developing a payload. At that point, you can just say, open up the firewall to the world in Bash. It'll take anything you tell it to do and then run it as a Bash script.
wow, and I mean, this isn't only theoretical. They have a proof of concept.
They have a proof of concept. They executed it, and in fact sent it to Automatic, which is the group that owns WordPress. They sent this report to Automatic. Within 4 days, Automatic responded, The day after their acknowledgement of it, they pushed a fix for the vulnerability, and then a couple weeks later, they marked it as resolved and closed and awarded a bug bounty to the WordFence team for finding and resolving this issue.
Very nice. Very nice. They were treated respectfully.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that the open source community needs, because when a massive problem occurs, then yeah, it should be rewarded, not punished. You don't shoot the whistleblower.
Yeah.
The only thing I wish I'd see more of is an attempt to find compromised systems as part of their patch, as part of their fix.
Mm-hmm.
Because this vulnerability, I'll go so far as to say this isn't even a tough one. This is probably something that's been known for a long time amongst the more elite and government hacking teams. So yeah, it's not going to happen to you again, but did it happen to you already?
Right. Right. All right, Mr. Rideout. Well, that is it for our list of.
You hate that we always ended on the doom and gloom. Do you want to push the doom and gloom forward? Bring your night up a little bit before we
don't
disconnect?
want the doom and gloom on here at all. But unfortunately, this doom and gloom I'm okay with. It was WordPress, it was PHP, it was doom and gloom, sure. I'm okay with it. Some doom and gloom, I'm like, why are we talking about this? I mean, we know there's bad crap out there, but I don't know.
Now, we talked last week about WordPress developers, people who are not PHP developers. They consider themselves WordPress developers. The day after that conversation, I met my cousin's girlfriend. Okay. And she thought I was amazing because I was a PHP developer, but she was just a lowly WordPress developer.
Really?
It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Now, does she actually work on code, or does she just work on themes and work through the WordPress interface?
I don't know that there's much of a difference anymore. I know that, I mean, when we looked at October CMS, we had commented on how fractured the whole thing was from the Laravel core.
I remember, yep.
And I could easily imagine if someone only had one job and it was working with WordPress, and they got their next job and it was WordPress, that you could become pigeonholed into even back-end development on WordPress without thinking yourself confident of PHP.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and like I said, I had a good friend who did a lot of WordPress work and still does do WordPress work. Explain kind of the whole concept of why there are WordPress, quote unquote, WordPress developers out there. And it's almost like, really, it's almost like they treat it like a framework, right? And they only know how to do things in WordPress. Like, they don't understand the PHP way of getting something done. They know how to make certain calls in WordPress using WordPress functions, and that's it.
Yeah, and WordPress is so core to the PHP community that we actually, in our list of 20 rules, we have no slamming other people's code, no religion and politics, no bad mouthing WordPress.
Do we actually call it WordPress?
It's no bad mouthing specific projects, WordPress. So, I mean, as much as we have issues with it, it is part of our ecosystem. We have to concern ourselves with it. Most often we concern ourselves with moving away from it, but it is definitely something that we have to deal with. And I guess nearly 30% of the internet, that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying, dude. I'm looking through our Trello board. We've gone through a lot of shows, man.
We've been in the shit.
Holy crap!
Also, if you scroll our Trello board, it makes a wavy line.
It does. It's like Lots of stories, not so many stories, a few stories, couple stories, lots of stories. It really does. We need to throw all this through Watson, have him analyze if we have any good shows out there.
Yeah. 90% ugly.
90% ugly. All right, man. Well, I'm glad you had a good turkey day. I'm looking forward to my turkey day tomorrow, although I do have to work tomorrow. One of the all the glitz and glamour of being a consultant, when it comes to holidays, that kind of goes out the door because you either work or you don't get paid, and a lot of the contracts we have just assume you're working. So we work and we pay people to work, and it's
The
all
same the
good.
same could be said of salary though. I mean, if my boss calls me tomorrow, I'm working. There's no
Yeah,
way
but
out of that.
yeah, that's true. I know my wife, when she works on holidays, she gets holiday pay. Like she'll get double time or time and a half, or they compensate her differently than they do normal hourly rates. I don't know if
I
she's
get
getting that tonight.
I get leeway compensation.
Leeway.
Yeah, where like if I clock in at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, then my boss goes, "Well, he was here all weekend."
Oh my gosh.
At least I assume that's how it works. I haven't I haven't pointed out that I'm late.
And you don't literally clock in.
No,
So
and I do have my uh, availability status permanently set to available, so there's no indication of whether or not I'm actually at my computer.
so you're banking on the fact that your boss and pretty much everybody you work with do not listen to this podcast.
Yeah, no, I've actually gone as far as to verify that.
All right, Thomas. Well, I'm going to let you go. I got things to do. It's late. I got to get to sleep.
Yeah, I've got some beers with my name on them.
All right. This is going to be it for episode 38 of the PHP Ugly podcast. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout. Happy
Keep it
Thanksgiving.
ugly. Happy Thanksgiving. Keep it ugly. Use a password manager. Damn it.
Baker's dozen.
Dude,
It's been like 20 episodes. It's been like 20 episodes
feel
since
right. I couldn't get it going today.
We did great. That was a great episode.
I don't know. I just didn't feel like I was connecting.
No, it's picking up the slack for sure.